kind enough to return right away after a fascinating weekend of college football. And the College Football Playoff Committee has spoken. All Final Four has been set. Bruce Feldman of The Athletic and Fox Sports right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you.
What'd you think of the College Football Playoff Committee's work? Did you like it? You think they got it right?
I do. I don't think they screwed it up. I mean, look, TCU lost in the Big 12 title game, but they lost in overtime. They had actually beaten Kansas State earlier in the year, and I think the fact that Kansas State's a top 10 team, it's a weird way they kind of helped their own cause even in a loss, because now K-State is in the top 10, and that's still a better win than anything that Alabama has, who's 5. I mean, Alabama beat Texas. That's their best win. Well, so did TCU. They both beat them in Austin, except they beat Kansas State, and they don't have 2 losses, right? As far as Ohio State getting in there, I think Ohio State's fine to be in number 4. Obviously, there was a blowout loss to their arch rival late in the year, but they do have a win over Penn State, and that was at Happy Valley. We were at that game. So I think the committee got it right. I don't think Alabama deserved to be in.
Yeah, and Nick Saban had an interesting halftime appearance on Fox on your station during the Big Ten championship game. I guess it fell on deaf ears that they are better. Take a look at how many kids we have and how we would be
That's all great,
favored,
Rich,
and
but
all that.
Yeah, the favorite thing, then why play the games, right? I mean, you can say we lost, on the last play of the game at LSU. You lost against Tennessee the last play of the game. You also won on the last play of the game against a horrible Texas A&M team. That could go the other way, if you want to use it. So they were very fortunate to beat Texas. They don't have any good SEC wins to show for it. The fact that you would be making a case if you're Nick Saban, greatest coach ever, this was not a great team he had, and it's just, that's the reality.
What about the fact that they kept Ohio State at 4 and avoided the rematch with Michigan right off the bat? Personally, I think Ohio State should have to earn that by beating Georgia, and if Michigan is good enough and fortunate enough to get past TCU, then so be it. But to just go ahead and match them up, I thought that wasn't right, to just give them the right to just go ahead and want back into the playoffs and get their rival right away. Boo Corrigan, who is the committee chair, said they didn't even consider that. Do you think they didn't even consider that at all?
I'm sure somebody probably kicked it around in their head. There's a lot of voices in the room. I think what helped them was that K-State did not blow out TCU. That was a game they lost in overtime. And I think if it was different, if K-State won like 48-14, they didn't. I mean, TCU has won more games than Ohio State. They lost a game basically in overtime, whereas Ohio State got blown out at home at the end of the year. If you're Ohio State, just be glad you're in, right? You have a puncher's chance. You're going to have to go through the best, the defending champs, see what happens. But I don't think they would have jumped off it because they would have said, oh, we just don't want a rematch. I just don't think that, if you look at it, TCU was more deserving to be in that spot at number 3 than Ohio State
but
is.
The fact that he said it wasn't even brought up in the room, that nobody brought up in the room, hey, do we want to get Michigan, Ohio State in a college football playoff semifinal? I mean, you want to talk about what people would watch on a New Year's Eve. That certainly would be it.
They're going to watch either way, I really think.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's a moot point. I understand why people are thinking that. I think if it was, I think if Kansas State got blown out, and as opposed to losing in overtime, the resumes are relatively close. Right. One team, though, is they beat the team that beat them. The other team, and I don't have to tell you this, got blown out in the end of the game, at the end of their season, right? The last time we saw them, Ohio State was getting pummeled in the corner, so I just think maybe they'll say that they never thought about it. They didn't have to. I mean, it was just to me, it's obvious 3-4, the way it fell.
Bruce Feldman here on the Rich Eisen Show. Caleb Williams was terrific until his hamstring gave way. And then Max Duggan, I mean, his final drive to tie the game was remarkable. Did he win the Heisman on that drive, do you think?
I don't think so. I think he probably, if people held their votes till this weekend,
yes,
which hopefully they did, I think he's a strong second. But I don't think he overtook Caleb. I think people know that Caleb Williams, he wasn't the same player at that point at the end of the game, but it wasn't like he threw 5 picks either. He threw in 1 interception. I think he was valiantly played. I think he had a very big lead going into the final weekend, and I just don't know how many people looked at Max Duggan and thought, okay. I think for a lot of people, Max Duggan was actually not on their top 3 going into this weekend.
Is that right?
That's why he would be on mine, but I've seen him in person, play a couple times this year, and I've seen him put that team on his back. But I think for a bunch of people, they had C.J. Stroud still in there. I think you have some other guys. Hendon Hooker really put Tennessee on his back till he got hurt late in the year. And these are all guys who are deserving to be in New York.
Blake Corum too.
Blake Corum, similar to Hendon Hooker, where at the end of the year he got hurt, but I think he will get certainly some votes. But ultimately, I think it's going to be Caleb Williams and then Max Duggan, and who knows? You'll probably see some votes for some other guys who are I don't want to say they're vanity votes, but you'll see certain guys who, probably somebody's going to put third. And I think, maybe there'll be a handful of ballots where Max Duggan won't get any first, but he'll get a lot of second and thirds, where Caleb, I think, is going to get a ton of first.
So who gets the invitation to New York to sit there for 60 minutes in an way too quiet room until they make the announcement? To do some heavy lifting for ESPN, I think you're definitely going to get Max Duggan there because he's on one of the playoff teams. I think you'll have Caleb there because I think he's going to win it. Yes.
And then after that, I think you look at teams. I don't think you'll have Stetson Bennett will have enough votes to get there, but he's obviously on the Georgia team.
Yes.
And then we're talking about, I don't know if Blake Corum gets invited if he gets enough votes.
Right.
It's not like a case where he's playing in the game where they can promote it and kind of back end it, but. We'll see. I mean, the number always fluctuates depending on the voting, and we'll see who's like 3-4 if it's close enough.
Bruce Feldman here from The Athletic and Fox Sports. With so much going on in the college football world, how about my guy Prime? Walk me through how Colorado wound up on his radar screen and why they were the ones who, how I feel about it, smart enough to take what others consider a risk. What do you got for me on that front?
Yeah, so when they fired Carl Durrell on October 2nd, some people behind the scenes at Colorado really worked to say, hey, Deion is the guy that we need. We desperately need. This program is right now irrelevant. It's got a lot of issues. Deion has the presence. Deion has the charisma. Deion has the vision. Deion has the plan that he can, and it's happening right now in the transfer portal era. And that means he can flip it pretty fast. The roster is atrocious. He can fix it. Kids are going to want to play for him. Kids who are at Jackson State are going to want to follow him. And to the credit of Rick George, the AD, he worked off of their lead and really got the ball rolling. And I think it helped them that a few other schools, and we talked about this the other day, I think Auburn, for a variety of reasons, was afraid of hiring Deion.
That's ridiculous. I mean, they will rue that decision. I fully believe it in my bones. They will rue that decision. I was saying, could you imagine if he strolled into a living room in the state of Alabama? Who better to say, don't go to Nick Saban. Come here, and let's just say that you need to tip the scales. Deion has Bo Jackson on
Deion doesn't even need Bo Jackson. Deion doesn't need Cam. Deion doesn't need Barkley. Deion doesn't need anybody's help.
But he could get it.
He could get it, but I mean, I don't I'm with you. I think if you're Georgia Tech and Georgia, he was a star with the Braves, he was a star with the Falcons. I mean, he's doing the work for you.
He built the Georgia Dome. That was his house. He would say it was my house.
And yet, you hear that they did not have the commitment to jump into this. I mean, who? He would give them a fighting chance to compete with Kirby Smart. That rivalry is so far, from where it used to be because Georgia Tech has fallen so far behind, and Georgia has really just now they won a national title, and Kirby Smart's got it going. But who wants to follow Deion Sanders in a home visit if you're the coach? Look,
nobody.
Kirby Smart's got a national title ring, but who's the second most charismatic coach in college football right now? I don't know who it is. I know who's number one, though. And the thing is, how does that resonate with 17, 18, 19, and 21, 22-year-olds who, by the way, now are looking at it going, well, I saw what USC just did. They can flip it fast. And so I did a story over the weekend with Bill McCartney's son, Mike.
I saw that, yeah.
And Mike's dad was the only man who led CU to a national title. And he was over the moon about the idea that Deion was coming there. And one of the things he said that I thought really resonated was there will be kids who will be like, I don't have, Colorado in my top 3 or 4, but you know what? I'm really curious to go meet Deion. Let me see what he's about. And they'll go there and then they will flip and they will commit to CU. I don't doubt it at all. I mean, his press conference yesterday, like I sat there and watched it, and I went downstairs, and my wife works in PR, and I told her, I was like, and we know it, but until you watch it, it's like you're just kind of awed by what is going on. And then there's video of everything, and I don't doubt, like, he will be able to say things, and he has, and he did last night when he addressed his team in the first meeting, that if somebody else said it, I think it would be like, ooh, you can't really say, hey, go in the portal. You're not. I watched the film of you. You're not. You're not good enough. That effort's not going to cut it. Go in the portal. And I think with him, it's like this is the hard truth. Maybe there are some guys who are sitting there. How do you feel where Deion Sanders is saying that team meeting about there will be no hats on? You're sitting there with the Reds hat on or whatever. Like the Blue Jays hat on in the room. It's just like it was a remarkable scene. And I think this program, it's beyond nationally relevant now. It's like must-see TV, everything. Like, oh yeah, I'm blown away by where this thing is. And to circle back, if you're one of these schools that were just like, yeah, we're not going to take the risk, like, your guy better work out great because, I think, he's playing with the house's money because they were so bad before. No matter what happens, we know there's going to be a lot better talent come in. What's the worst they're going to do? 6-6 next year?
I'm with you. As you know, I was on this from the very beginning. And in terms of anybody out there who's sitting there thinking, well, how relevant is he with a 17, 18, 19-year-old or 16-year-old or anybody?
You're a fool if you're asking that question. I'm not saying you are, but
I saw it at the combine year in and year out. Kids half of Deion's age, definitely not alive when Deion was on the back end of his playing career. Okay. They all knew exactly who he was, and the minute he walked on the field as part of NFL Network's roving reporter on the field during the defensive back drills, they flocked to him. And then when he was just roaming the field with the microphone and some kid ran the 40 and he thought that he didn't run it, he was weaving in and out, or his workout, his this step didn't work, that step didn't work, he would call the kid over. Hey, come here. And we'd have to cut his mic off just because sometimes we would hear the conversation. We'd have to cut his mic off, and he would coach him up. He would coach the kid up, and the kid was just immediately locked into every syllable that was coming out of Deion's mouth. This was him when he was just a youth football coach. And then, too, Chris, you've watched him watch football games with us, okay?
Yeah.
And when an NFL player would do something so stupid and dumb, cut him. He said, if I was a coach, I would cut him before he came back to the sideline.
Yeah.
So him saying to everybody, there's the transfer portal, it's not an act. Like, this is prime. This is Deion. Yeah. And in the day and age of NIL and portals,
that's what I was going to say.
Perfect timing.
Well, it is perfect. Like, I tweeted on my story, this is the perfect hire at the perfect time. And because of what you just said, the NIL era, where it used to be, 5 years ago, back certainly when, there was an 85-person scholarship limit and everything, you'd hear about guys were running people off. You couldn't do that, everything. I think in this NIL era where there's the portal is rolling, and it's like once you go in the portal, they can basically pull away from you, and it's kind of all bets are off. I definitely think this is hard reality that's coming here, right? And if I was a Colorado fan, I would sit there and go, my God, look what's going on here. Like, we're actually going to compete with real college football teams, and it's been forever. They've had one season really in the last 17 years where they had a winning record. I mean, they were so bad. You and I remember, and you guys remember when they were, it was Eric Bieniemy and Kanavis McGee and
Cordell.
Yes,
they had the cutting edge quarterback.
Yeah, Heisman Trophy winner.
Rashawn
Salam. They have had, I don't want to say nothing, but they have had so little, and just now all of a sudden the fact that all these kids, like a 5-star offensive lineman who's committed to Iowa has a great track record of developing offensive linemen. Deion offered me now all of a sudden. I'm not saying he's going to flip,
Right.
but I wouldn't be surprised. Nothing is going to surprise me now. And I think what you will see on signing day is like there will be so many surprises of kids who want to go there. You know, and again, if it's resonating with us at our age, can you imagine what it's doing to 16, 17, 18-year-olds who are like, I want to go play for that guy?
I got to make a note of it. I got to call Fowler, our friend. I'm just asking. I mean, he's a buff. I can't wait to speak to him about that. That'll be great. I got Bruce Feldman here on the Rich Eisen Show. Before I let you go, you called it multiple times on your Twitter feed today an avalanche. The transfer portal. What is happening today and why?
Today's the day it starts, this period for the next month and a half, where you're going to see lots of good players, lots of players who were big recruits who maybe haven't panned out, all sorts of activity going in. I mean, we've already seen a bunch of quarterbacks, you know, DJ Uiagalelei, who had the Dr. Pepper commercial last year, former 5-star quarterback at Clemson. You know, he's from here in LA, huge arm, you know, has had a really up and down go at Clemson. Devin Leary at NC State, who is this starting quarterback, put up big numbers, but is hurt now. Keaton Slovis, who started at Pitt, started at USC. You're going to see so many guys that are flooding in today, tomorrow, and beyond. And one of the things that was interesting, especially in the, you know, as it relates to like Slovis, people are like, okay, you know, because I had talked to him and he said, yes, I'm going in. But they're like, coaches are waiting. When is he actually in? Because I want to talk to him. And, you know, you'll see this. How does this, you know, jive with the rest of high school recruiting? Because you have to, you know, budget your roster. But it is a different level of recruiting that's going on now. And I think you'll see a lot of guys who've had good I know you're going to see a lot of guys who've had really good seasons who are going to say, all right, this was my situation here. What can you guys do for me? Basically telling, you know, all the rest of college coaches, what can you do for me? What can your NIL people do? Why should I go there? Like it is really open season and free agency.
That's it. So is this the way it's going to be from now on? Is that the college football playoff makes its announcement after, I'm assuming there won't be any conference championship games still around 10 years from now when we have a Super League formed. But as for the moment, college football playoff committee makes its announcement. Playoffs are set. Heisman Trophy's coming up, and free agency begins? Is that basically the way that we're going to?
We'll see how it goes, because I think they always tweak it and see, okay, there's some issues that came up with this. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, the fact that the portal is one thing and the NIL situation is so murky right now, I think that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. But when I say it makes them a lot uncomfortable, I also think, you know, it's almost like Christmas for all these coaches.
Yes.
Because in one sense, roster management, I think they've already come to the realization roster management is not the same as what it was 2 years ago. And these guys are all control freaks, and they've kind of realized, all right, that ship has sailed. Now how do we operate in this new reality? There'll be some logistical stuff that I'm sure will get changed. I'm sure it'll get tweaked and ironed out, and some new problems will surface because you have a lot of third-party people who've jumped into the margins. But I mean, you know, it's weird. It's those days that you have them in the NFL, and certainly the NBA has it, where it's like, oh, it's a trade deadline or it's something like this, and there really wasn't the same kind of equivalent other than National Signing Day. But now it's weird. It's almost like Christmas and tax day all together in the same time for college coaches.
Last one for you, Bruce Feldman of The Athletic and Fox Sports. My colleagues at the NFL Network, NFL Media Group, Pelissero and Ian Rappaport, I got to talk to them.
Those guys hate you, man.
They're kicking up dirt around Jim Harbaugh. The hell. He said that he was done. This wouldn't be a reoccurring thing, is what he said after he and the Vikings did not strike anything other than just a note and a chord, and a very difficult chord for Michigan fans to swallow. It happened on signing day last year. And all he's done and it was my message to Michigan faithful at the end of the first hour, is like, we were all wondering, did he blow the best opportunity to follow up on the best season Michigan's ever had? Well, the answer is yes. He's followed up with an even better one. So this was Jim Harbaugh talking about the rumors that the Colts are hot and heavy for him. This was him on a teleconference for the Verbo. Who knew, by the way? It's not VRBO. Verbo Fiesta Bowl on Sunday night.
Well, it's a lot of that time of the year type of speculation. But I think no man knows the future, but I think the people that think we've done a good job and are pleased with the job that we've done here in Michigan. They're going to be, very happy to learn that we'll be back enthusiastically coaching the Wolverines in 2023. And for those people that don't approve of the job we've done or would rather see somebody else coaching here, I think they'll be most likely disappointed to learn we're back coaching the Wolverines in 2023.
Take that, Tom. I don't know. Look, I thought he was going to leave last year, but you know what? It's one of those deals where I feel like Michigan football right now is in a much better trajectory than it was 12 months ago. The signing day thing, like, look, nobody knows for sure what's in Jim Harbaugh's heart, whether he's feeling like, all right, I didn't win a Super Bowl. I actually came close. That's the only thing left. But I think on the other side of it right now, whether he can beat TCU, then beat Georgia or Ohio State, I feel like they are close. I'm not saying they're close to dominating college football or anything like that, but they are closer to winning a national title and having really sustainability now than they were a year ago. And I think, like, if you leave now, maybe if he wins a national title, then maybe it is mission accomplished. I don't know that. I don't think anybody knows that. The part I'm curious about is the people who looked at him. Look, the Raiders job was open. We know he has a lot of affinity for that organization last year. He had some connections to the Vikings. That didn't work out. Mm-hmm. Like, all of a sudden now it's like, who are these people who are going to, like, we know who Jim Harbaugh is. It's not like he's, the 42-year-old coach who's kind of, like, they know. Is it just going to take one other situation? It's like, okay, now we saw that he whipped Ohio State again. We saw all of a sudden now it's like, okay, we're going to all jump on board for Jim Harbaugh. You know what he is.
Well, the Colts know what he is. His name's in the Ring of Honor. And they just had a 50-piece put on Sunday Night Football. In one of the most, in a performance that Chris Collinsworth called embarrassing, a national embarrassment. So that's why they're really hot and heavy for him. And then, the national championship game, if Michigan's fortunate enough to make it, is the so-called Black Monday in the NFL. Because the NFL is now longer and they're playing the national championship game a little sooner. It kind of all times up, which is why people are wondering.
It does, but also this is the same guy who said last year,
I'm not doing this anymore.
I'm not doing this anymore. And now all of a sudden it's like, it'd be different if I think if he had the similar year to last year, it was 11-1. Maybe they don't win maybe they lose to Ohio State. They got closer, but they don't win the big. It's still a good year,
yeah. But
it's not what he had last year. Instead, I feel like they've taken another step towards it. So I'd be surprised if he would back away. I thought last year he was going to leave, but he didn't really have the opportunity to get it. So maybe now somebody gives him everything he wants and he's like, oh yeah, I've done. Because I think if you're a Michigan fan, obviously I know you are.
Yeah.
Like, if he were to leave after this year, you'd be disappointed.
Oh yeah.
But, he has done what I think you could have hoped for him to do. He not only beat Ohio State, he kicked their butts in Columbus. He got you to the playoff twice. If he wins the national title, obviously that'd be great for Michigan. But the question is, ultimately, what does he want most? Does he really think like a Super Bowl, or does he think, I'm at my alma mater, I can be the king of the Big Ten? I can be the king of the Big Ten now, right? This is not a one-time deal. I mean, I would think he would be staying now, say, all right, after what I said last year, they didn't want me. This is where I want to be. They want me. I want to, be here with my family for the long haul.
Bruce Feldman, thanks for coming in. We'll have you back on shortly if you don't mind. Look for my call. It came really quick from the last time. Bruce Feldman, follow him on Twitter. Must follow. Check out all his works on The Athletic as well as Fox Sports. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.